Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets firing Pascal Vincent. That happened on Monday, but I had a lot to talk about on Monday with Game 5 coming up. So I did push it back to this podcast, and now I'm going to finally talk about it. Pascal Vincent is no longer the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Is this the right decision? I do believe so. I think that the Blue Jackets are really going over a revolution of their entire front office, of their entire kind of the guys that have kept that organization to the same level. I think that the Blue Jackets really want to win, and they want to win as soon as possible is what all of these moves have kind of told me. They do believe, Don Waddell believes, John Davidson, all the guys in that front office believe that they have the talent on the roster. Don Waddell saying that there are going to be 6 new faces in the roster for next year, which I do believe him on that. I think that there is a lot of improvement to be had in Columbus. But for this team and for Pascal Vincent, he had a 1-year contract, or he was there for 1 year. He did take over, and it is a little bit unfortunate because he took over and he didn't have a full summer with these guys that he became the head coach for. This is now, in the last 2 years, Johnny Gaudreau's 4th head coach that he's going on to when they finally hire a replacement for Pascal Vincent. It's been turnover city over in Columbus. It was Pascal Vincent for 1 year. It was for a cup of coffee, Mike Babcock, who crashed and burned in Columbus. And I think that there's going to be scar tissue on that, which is going to, prevent them from hiring a guy similar like Babcock. That's kind of why they went with Pascal Vincent last year, in my opinion. I think that they wanted somebody completely different because they saw how horrible that all was. So they're going to go with somebody completely different. It was Pascal Vincent. And now I think that they kind of lead into that a little bit more. Of course, before Mike Babcock, it was Brad Larson for a few years, who didn't have the best tenure in Columbus. It's been a lot of losing seasons in Columbus in a row since that 2020 playoff run where they lost in 5 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, they do think that they have the roster, and I do think that they have the roster too. I think their roster is really good. I think that they're going to hire a guy sooner than later, of course, with the draft coming up. They do want a head coach in mind when it comes to picking 4th overall in a draft. It just makes sense. But for the Columbus Blue Jackets, they have so many RFAs coming up here, and we're going to be talking about Yegor Chinakhov, Kirill Marchenko, Alexander Nylander, Cole Sillinger, Alexander Texier, Carson Meyer, Jake Bean's an RFA, Kent Johnson's an RFA. So for a lot of these young guys, they are up this year. And I think that just looking over this team, they have the talent. Kirill Marchenko is a 30-goal scorer. Yegor Chinakhov has potential to be a 30-goal scorer. They have Dmitry Voronkov, who really boomed his rookie season, was around 50 points, was one of the team leaders in points. They have Adam Fantilli, who was fantastic his rookie season before he got injured and had to miss out the rest of the year. But they also have guys on this team like Sean Corrali, like Matthew Olivier, like Justin Danforth, who just aren't NHL guys. And then with all of that, they also have Boone Jenner, who is playing first line a lot for them and is just not a first line center. And I think anybody that watches the Blue Jackets can tell you that. On their back end, they tried to kind of fix it last offseason, going with Zach Werenski, Damon Severson, Ivan Provorov, Eric Goodbranson, Adam Balkvist, and Jake Bean. And what that did was disable them from being able to promote young guys that had great seasons, like David Jiricek, who was a fantastic defenseman in the AHL, making the AHL All-Star team, but he was just blocked in the NHL because of these defensemen ahead of him. And then on top of all of that, you also have Patrick Laine, who won't play for them anymore. You have a bunch of season-ending injuries that made them a little bit worse. But in their system, they have fantastic defenseman prospects with David Jiricek and Tim Matejchuk, both former, and Carson Kuhlmans, who are all former first-round draft picks only a few years ago on all of them as well, 21, 20, 19, and 20 for those guys. You also have guys like Stanislav Svozil, who has, flashed at times, the 21-year-old defenseman. And then on the offensive side, you have guys like Jordan Dumais, who is a fantastic forward. He's shown in the QMJHL that he can be amazing. James Malatesta, who played on the NHL team and looked very good this past year. You have guys like Luca Del Beluz, who will be good when he gets his when his time comes. And you have Gavin Brindley, a prospect that led Michigan in a lot of stats on a stacked Michigan team this past season in the NCAAs. So for this Blue Jackets team, it's so young, and it can only get better in Don Waddell's eyes, and I think that this is a prime spot for any coach to take over. So who are the candidates right now? Right now, my favorite name is Todd Nelson, who is the Hershey Bears head coach right now, taking them to their second Calder Cup championship in a row, beating the Cleveland Monsters, funny enough, the affiliate for the Columbus Blue Jackets in the Eastern Conference Final this past season. But for the Hershey Bears and Todd Nelson, he can do it with young talent. This is what he's proven in Hershey this past 2 years. Now looking for a back-to-back Calder Cup, this is a great name, a guy that is looking to prove himself, and I think that's what the Blue Jackets need right now, a guy looking to prove himself. I think could be very good for a Columbus Blue Jackets team, and not for Pascal Vincent, but for Don Waddell. Some other names that I've heard, Todd McClellan is probably the most, the biggest name that I've heard. Former Sharks, Kings, Oilers head coach. You also have Jay Woodcroft, who got fired by the Oilers earlier this year. You have Gerard Gallant, who was a former Columbus Blue Jackets head coach in 03 to 07 in the, dark times of the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, to say the least. For the big names like Todd McClellan, Jay Woodcroft, and Gerard Gallant, I don't know if I would want to see them so much in Columbus. It's not that I don't believe in them to be able to get it done. I just think that that's not what the franchise needs right now. I think the franchise needs a guy that can grow these young guys, show them their full potential, and, use the talents that they have on their roster, because it is a talented and young roster. It really is. So the Blue Jackets are in a good spot, but for the Columbus Blue Jackets, it's an interesting one. I think they're in a weird time because they need to hire a guy probably by the draft, but Todd Nelson and the Hershey Bears won't be finishing up until pretty much around the NHL draft, so of course Todd Nelson's not going to go anywhere from the Bears. So we'll see what that looks like for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think that's who they have in mind. I love that idea. I think the Blue Jackets are in good spot. I think that they needed to fire Pascal Vincent. This isn't Pascal Vincent's fault. He will get another opportunity somewhere. He's 52 years old, still a young coach. It's just the roster that he had was not what he's able to coach, is what I've noticed. So that'll wrap it up for our talk about Pascal Vincent being fired by the Columbus Blue Jackets. When I get back for my fifth and final segment of the night, we will be talking about the Stanley Cup Final, Game 6 preview, talking about whether or not the Oilers are actually going to do this, come back from 3-0 to force a Game 7 in Florida.